Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from. Welcome to another edition of the Level Up Hour here on OpenShift TV. I am Chris Short, executive producer of OpenShift TV. I am joined by the one and only, the illustrious Langdon White. Langdon, hello, good morning. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good. As we often complain on this show and in life in general, I'm not far enough into my coffee. However, we will make do. I don't know what do we got. We got good coffee cups today. I'm sporting a red Panda.
Well, I've got the I Love Ansible hat or coffee
Okay.
mug because of some events this week. But yeah.
Oh right, yeah.
So yeah, the coffee is flowing here on channel, and we've got the lights up for everybody, and we're here, and we're happy to be amongst you. And what do you got on tap for us today, Langdon? Or I guess
Well,
what do we have on tap today?
right. I actually managed to remember to update the slides, so that's a good start for the day.
Yeah, that's always good.
And let's see if I can share them. One technology fail at a time.
Yeah, right.
All right. Yay, slides. They are the best. Although I heard we have maybe some new colors and stuff rather than the red. I kind of like the busy stuff on the side, but so we'll see.
We'll see.
But sorry. Let me back up. This is the Level Up Hour in case you're lost, where we talk about why you might want to use containers in kind of your everyday life, and particularly as kind of the non-developer use cases. We do tend to cover some relatively unusual aspects of that as well. For example, this episode where we're going to talk about service mesh. But the idea is, let's try to cover all things that kind of about why you might want to get engaged with containers, and then what we've discovered as humans, right, is that as we work more and more with containers, we discover that we need to orchestrate those containers. And so then we talk about, as our namesake channel, we talk about OpenShift as a way to orchestrate those containers. So specifically today, we're going to talk about kind of, it's not really orchestration per se, but ways to do extra like kind of give your application extra abilities without code change, and arguably, depending on how much risk you like to take without QA, but you got to be crazy. So, all right. So I'm Langdon White. You can find me at Langdon with a 1 on Twitter,
Nice.
and Chris is Chris Short, and he's not as short as implied by his tag.
I guess you don't get to see that on camera, right?
Right.
So
My
my
Maybe we
last
should
name
do a
is
stand-up
Short.
show.
I like exactly. I like to refer to myself as a walking oxymoron because my last name is Short and I am 6'4". It is to remind everyone in the world that you can't take yourself too seriously.
Right. But you can judge a book by its cover?
Yes.
Or something. We usually hang out on Discord. Thanks to the lovely Restream, you can go to the Discord and chat with us for the show. You can also go and chat with us there for other stuff. But you can also chat in Twitch or the YouTube Live, or I'm not even sure what world we're on these days. Facebook. And
we're
then
still on Periscope just to burn off the transcoding hours we bought. So yeah, Periscope will be shutting down as soon as we run out of those hours, or March 31st.
We're not shutting it down.
We're not shutting it down. Periscope is actually shutting down on March 31st.
Right.
And Twitter's going to do something else, apparently, I guess.
Well,
which is what I thought they were going to do when they got rid of Periscope the first time, but whatever.
Isn't this their third try, right?
Because I think, who knows?
There was also there was the TikTok competitor before TikTok existed, which I can't think of the name of.
Snapchat? That's different.
No, on Twitter.
Twitter?
Completely blanking. My children will be disappointed. All right, so there's our Discord. Go join us if you like. And then kind of a little bit about the show. One of the things I feel like I was looking at something, whatever, recently. The Level Up Hour is actually a show that's part of a kind of a general program that Red Hat is offering. So if you go to redhat.s/level up hour, there's other cool things like discounts on certifications, as well as, especially if you are already a Red Hat certified admin. Is that right? RHCA.
I think it's no.
No, I'm missing a letter, right?
RHCA is architect.
Oh, right.
RHCSA is certified system administrator.
There you go. There you go. So if you have kind of one of those certifications, you want to kind of up level into the OpenShift certifications, you can do those with either free or discounted classes.
Deeply discounted is my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, and then sometimes there's also kind of access to licenses for OpenShift, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So go check it out. Because that's, there's a lot more to the program in a sense than us talking here. And, of course, we have the sweet internet points, which nobody else does, but we're trying to change that.
Yes.
And we also, I heard through a little birdie that we're getting a step closer to potentially having these sweet internet points have a value beyond intrinsic.
Stop it.
Really? That's what I hear.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the points exactly or specifically in a bit.
Sure.
But I did it again. I left the last 2 times line in there. I keep not seeing that when I go and update the links and stuff.
What, show notes from the last 2 times? Yeah.
Yeah. So today's episode is episode 21, service mesh. Hopefully we're going to get that integrated with Nextcloud. What I realized as part of the kind of prep for the show is that it's weird that, the reason I chose Nextcloud is because it's not a hello world scenario.
Right.
But when you talk about service mesh, it kind of is, because it doesn't do anything, like as in a bunch of the features around service mesh are traffic shaping, Canary releasing, that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. But Nextcloud is actually not a brilliant example. Sorry. So, okay, but show notes from last time. If you are a longtime show noter or someone who has been watching the show for a while, you may notice that I rejiggered how the notes or basically the repo format. I don't know if I can get to the stupid link anymore with the stupid new
oh, I just dropped it in chat.
Oh, you got it? Okay, thanks. So yes, don't gas the Canary. Well, you use the Canary to find out if you're going to get gas, generally speaking. All right, so that's enough of an intro, I think.
I believe so.
Once I find the correct button. Let's see. How about stop sharing?
I believe in you. I believe in you.
I am truly talented with the technology.
20 shows of screen sharing back and forth. I would hope so. Yeah,
right. I know it's kind of crazy. This is our 21st show. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I made a brief attempt at changing the format to a different format. I got a lot of feedback that it was kind of like confusing. So maybe we'll stick with just episode number for a while. And
it wasn't confusing to me, I think, because I'm a sysadmin. So
it could be.
Why.
It could be.
Yeah. Like I'm an ops person by trade kind of deal, right? So
right. So if it's if you want to know what we're talking about, watch the last episode where I discussed a potential new episode titling. We could also do the Benjamin. What's his last name? Button, right? And we could start counting backwards. Going forward, right? So like our next episode could be 20 again, and then we could just go down from there. That would be super confusing.
That would be a nightmare. Let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'd be hilarious. Okay, so yeah. So let's see. I'm just kind of trying to also monitor the chat too.
We're good. People saying hello and good morning and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, one question I do have for the crowd. I have a few issues submitted on the GitHub repo regarding the show, which is good. The thing is, I don't know who the GitHub person is mapped to the person to give them points. So if you could reach out to me as that GitHub person on, say, Discord or something, and let me know that it's you, then I can allocate those points.
Excellent. And you created an issue tagging them, I'm assuming?
I should have. No, I did not do that.
You should go
but
tag
that's a good
them.
idea. Yes, a little
That way they
inception on the
know.
issues. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I could have just updated the ticket. I didn't even think of that. I don't know why. Must have been lack of coffee when I was looking at it. All right. So talking about service mesh. So I actually wrote an article about service mesh not too long ago.
Your video just got very blurry.
Oh, it does that when I move around sometimes.
Do your little
fix
hand
that.
focusy thing.
Oh yeah, I do this too.
Or that works too. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Okay, so let me. That is the wrong window to share because the fonts are all wrong. Let's try this.
I swear we need, like, the second you hit screen share, background music should start playing. And then it should let you pick the thing, right? Like there needs to be like screen sharing background music.
That would be funny. We could definitely talk to Ryan J about that. I bet he has the perfect music for it.
Yeah.
All right, let's share this whole desktop, but to make it less confusing, we will not put your picture up there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Although it still threw it up there, so now you get the little box on the right. Let's see if I can get rid of that. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so OpenShift Service Mesh released 2.0 version very recently, like right around the holidays. And so I wrote this kind of blog post to kind of say, hey, this is what Service Mesh is about and why you might care. I will throw that in the chat real quick. But suffice to say, especially if you've been around tech for a while, like some of us on the show, the service mesh is this concept has been around actually for quite a while, dating back to like, I mean, really in concept, a long time, but definitely in like the SOA days, we saw kind of the mesh idea kind of mixed in with the grid idea. But the idea with the mesh is that there are aspects of your application that you want to empower without necessarily injecting that into every piece of code. So the simplest example I think that everyone kind of regularly comes to is this one here that you can see on the screen, which is the mTLSifying your application. So in many applications, right, the communication between the various points of your application are not secured by default, right? Most programmers don't do that because it's a headache and it requires, at least for them, overhead of both performance and then maintenance of that code. So one of the things that is common to the concept of a service mesh is how can we encrypt all those communication channels without it relying on code changes. Why would you want to do this? Well, there's kind of general hygiene, which is a reasonable argument, but then there's also in the kind of modern age of, you know, you want to move a bunch of stuff into the cloud. How do you communicate between, like, say, different clouds or different VMs within the cloud if you're not using kind of a dedicated private VPN? Or let's say, you know, a lot of the time I would say you put your application, quote unquote, in the cloud, but you keep your data inside your data center. Okay, well, you want to be able to secure those communication channels. But if you do it at the service mesh level, you have a couple advantages. One is that you don't have to have your developers implementing basically security code, which is generally risky as well as high maintenance. But then also, if you change how those things are configured, excuse me, if you say move to a different cloud, for example, or whatever, you can do that all at the kind of administration or operational level without having to mess with the various versions of, or with the code itself. I do notice somebody asks in the chat.
Yeah, does it support TLS 1.3?
I want to say yes as well. That's one of those things that I'm bad with having off the top of my head.
I'm digging. Don't worry. You talk, I'll dig.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of the classic example of like a simple service mesh. However, in some ways it's the most boring, at least in my opinion,
Right.
because, yes, it's important to kind of encrypt all those channels or whatever, but it doesn't really give you the flexibility of like a microservice application that you see a term like service mesh and you're like, oh my goodness, let's now I get to have all these all this flexibility and it sounds really cool and all this stuff. So instead, so what I like to give as examples as well, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, is what you can also do is you can actually change your application as kind of on the fly. And so if you have any experience with containerization or with like OpenShift or whatever, you can do this to some extent already by saying, okay, replace V1 of this tool, of this container with V2, and don't drop connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a relatively straightforward thing to do. What a service mesh lets you do is, yes, that if you can't do that already, but then it lets you go to the next level, which is to do what's referred to as a canary deployment, for example. And a canary deployment, if you are unfamiliar, is it throws back to when you talk about mining, particularly I think it was copper mining. But the miners would actually take a canary, like the literal bird,
Mm-hmm.
into the mines with them. And if the canary died, they knew that it was time to get out because the air was bad, basically,
Right.
because of the very fast metabolism of a canary. They die more easily than humans do. So while it's a terrible story and I feel bad for the canaries, that's where the term comes from. But so the idea here is that instead of mass moving from V1 to V2 of microservice A, you can instead say, here is here is the new version, but I only want to give it to say 10% of the user population. Make sure everything is working and everything doesn't light on fire, then start to roll it out to the rest of the application users. And so that's where the canary comes in and where it's really kind of cool. Then you start to
Cool
have,
is an understatement. I
yes,
really,
exactly.
really like.
Yeah, it's really nice, especially if you are an organization that does the very fast moving, always releasing
Mm-hmm.
kind of development style. But even if you're not, even if you're a more traditional application environment, this is a really great way to have a group of power users be able to try out your new feature set, without submitting all the or subjecting, I guess, kind of your general non-power users to that feature set until it's ready. So there's a lot of really good reasons to play with it, and I highly recommend if you can pull that off, if you have the services to be able to roll things out that way. Doing canary releases is really nice. And then another one that's related and sometimes gets mixed in is what's referred to as blue green or red black. I actually looked this up because
Multiple colors. Yeah.
yeah, I looked it up, and it like there seems to be no definitive original set of colors that
Well,
this
I know
describes.
where red black comes from, right?
Really? Okay, I
Red
couldn't figure this out.
red and black it is an old encryption kind of thing, right? You had red traffic, which was the, you know, unsecured traffic, and then you had black traffic, which was the secured traffic. So an encryption device would take the red traffic and turn it into black traffic, right? So that's where that concept kind of comes from. So encrypted being, or unencrypted being red, encrypted being black, meaning it is safe to transmit that now.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
the red black concept that I'm familiar with. It comes from cryptography.
Huh. Okay. I swear I have, like, when I was like in college or something, like I read the reason for these colors. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that was one of them. I don't remember. But yeah, so I went and tried to look it up, couldn't figure out a good answer. But generally speaking, and this is and kind of reflective of the fact that I couldn't find a good answer to this, is that this can kind of mean what your organization wants it to mean. But generally speaking, it's the idea of let's give this version of the application to this set of users and that version to another set of users.
Mhm.
So that sounds like Canary, but it's not quite. And so what it really is a way to test, is this version of the application more successful at getting people to click the link or whatever than that version of the application. And kind of a similar example that I have, that I thought was amazing, is there's an organization that has practiced this kind of rollout for a long time now, and I won't mention any names, but what they did was they had numerous requests from their users to be able to accept checks as payments, so like paper checks, and so they didn't entirely believe that that was a real request, even though they were getting so many requests. So what they did was they actually rolled out a version of the application that allowed you to select check as your payment type. And then if you selected that and then hit submit or whatever, it would actually come back and say, oh, I'm sorry, but the check support is currently unavailable. It's just down right now.
Right.
And the fact that 0 people clicked on that and ran into that error is how they determined that they are not going to implement check by payment. So this is kind of a loose example. I really like the example, so that's why I bring it up, but it's not quite the same thing. But it's kind of the idea. I think a classic with this is often used with UX is like, where and what color button on the screen gets people to click it more often. And that way you can have different basically you can try out different things. So that's what a blue green or whatever release, and then what both the Canary and the blue green or whatever is lets you roll back or switch to a different one when everything is going sideways, because it falls apart. So one of the things we're not really going to talk about today is and I know I periodically talk about computer science in this on this show. And so one of the things in computer science is this concept of aspect-oriented programming. And as if you've watched the show for a while, I'm a big fan of this. And so what you're doing here with these tool chains, with a service mesh, is basically providing aspects to your applications. And one of the new features in the 2.0 version of service mesh is this ability to inject this here, which is basically that you can decorate or provide an aspect to almost anything inside your application, or actually any service within your application. So it has to be one of those kind of container units. But not only can you kind of apply, the mTLS or the Canary or the whatever feature to that service, you can actually do an arbitrary feature by using WebAssembly. And so if you're not familiar with WebAssembly, it's often referred to as WASM.
Yep. WASM, good old WASM.
Yeah. And that's this WebAssembly. Basically, I saw there was a great description of it on this page. But I'm just trying to find where.
So I can give you a layman's definition.
Oh yeah, sure.
I mean, the idea behind WebAssembly is that you can take programs that you've written in other languages and run them natively in the web browser, right? And that means C++ or Rust, whatever kind of language you want to use. You can then take that program and say, all right, let's run this in the browser. Now, at first, to a security person, that might sound like horrifying, but when you think about it, right, like JavaScript is just actively running on clients everywhere all the time, right? So now, okay, let's take something else other than JavaScript and put that in the browser. It opens up a wide world of possibilities, right?
Exactly.
And it's truly amazing. But yeah.
And so this, this is semi-unofficial, but, quasi-official, just to give you an idea of the number of languages that already have a compiler to WebAssembly.
Oh, it's amazing. It's absolutely crazy.
Right. So there is a ton of stuff. And yeah, so suffice to say, it lets you kind of natively compile, like native to the web, whatever that means,
right.
Compile your existing languages. So what does that mean to you? Okay, well, that means that you can take whatever language you're comfortable in and write the feature that you need to decorate that particular aspect of your component.
Right. Like I'm more familiar with Go than JavaScript. So if I needed to do something, I knew how to do it in Go. I could now do that now.
Right. Exactly. Or if you were cool, you would use Rust. Right.
Right. Which is something that I'm trying to get into, but yeah. No one builds a new language and thinks, how do I get beginners into it? They think, how do I get more people that are actually programmers into it, right? So yeah, anyways.
Well, and Rust is a little biased just because, I mean, they developed the language to build Firefox, right? Like they weren't developing the language to build a language, you know.
Yeah.
So I think they're a little bit biased. But the number of people who I hear just swearing about how like awesome it is makes me think that I really need to get into it too.
I do too, and I've been trying to, but me and programming is it's just
right. Yeah, maybe you need to rewrite your your streaming platform in Rust. How to, I don't know, something.
No, so funny story. There's a friend of mine, Eric St. Martin. He works at Microsoft, and he's huge in the Go community. But he's been doing a lot with WebAssembly and Rust, and he has streams as well where he does some like just live coding of, hey, we're going to make this thing run in the browser, and it's like some Rust program that he's coding. And he's been doing a lot of WebRTC stuff actually, so it's pretty cool to watch him do that. So like, technically speaking, he's gluing together his own like restream service, but he's not trying to. He's just like these example problems he's trying to solve.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Twitch is turning into a really interesting like platform for quote unquote learning of various tech stuff. Like the number of like live coding Twitch streams that I kind of come across and are really quite interesting, is impressive. Maybe we should have a show talking about other shows at some point in the future. Or maybe we should start thinking about doing some more live coding shows. Maybe if we get enough requests, we could do more live coding.
I'll ask Eric to come on. How about that?
Yeah.
Does that make you happy?
Yeah. All right. So another big thing that the OpenShift service mesh provides, but is not something I normally think of as part of a service mesh, but it's kind of in the same genre, so it kind of fits in the same bucket, is the ability to trace an app like a request or a call or whatever you want to call it through your entire application, both to kind of see how the traffic is moving, but also to do debugging, etc. And then you can try to get a picture of your application and how it's flowing, etc. That's like, if you think about it for a second, right, what I was talking about before is like, you're kind of injecting into every service your functionality as part of the service mesh. Well, that seems like a logical place to put, hey, why don't we do some tracing and, kind of analytics there. And, then we can get, better understanding of our application. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat there for a second.
Oh, you're fine.
I have a hard time reading and talking at the same time some days. I think it's a coffee related.
No, my voice is naturally bassy. If you've ever heard me talk on the phone or met me in person or like heard me talk at an event, you're like, wow, his voice is really deep. Yes, that's true. I have a deep voice.
Well, hopefully I'm not blown out today. I keep
you are not in my ears. I don't like, I'm at my normal output levels. So
right. Yeah, you sound fine to me. So everything's better with a demo. So I was gonna try to show a demo. Let me see if I can find the right window because I'm, technology defeated today.
Nice.
Here it is. No, maybe. Come on. I know I can find it. It's somewhere. Not that. This one. Yeah, this one. Let's try this one. And let me just make sure it's actually working. So we have a platform for doing demos that we tend to call it internally RHPDS. So if you hear me say that, it stands for the Brilliant Red Hat Product Demo System. In that demo system, so this is kind of like what we use to talk to people about it. We've been pushing a lot more of this to kind of general public. If you go to learn.openshift.com, you can kind of see our progress thus far. And actually, one of the things I was trying to do, but so if you go to learn.openshift.com, you can actually see there's a bunch of stuff here. So there's like serverless, there's an Istio one, and just kind of by way of background, when I say OpenShift Service Mesh, as with all things Red Hat, there is kind of a product name for a set of tools that are, an upstream open source, world. The ones that make up OpenShift Service Mesh are called Istio, Kiali, and Jaeger. And so if you see the Istio here, this is actually using the upstream, talking about that various piece, but you'll see more stuff kind of rolling out here regularly. We're trying to get things out here as often as we can. We also talked actually about the developer Sandbox recently. I don't want to switch to tab because I don't know what else is on that tab.
Oh boy.
Let's do this, and maybe it's, how did I get here? That's a feature. So we have this new developer Sandbox as well, which unfortunately doesn't do service mesh, which is where I was going to demo this originally,
Right.
Which I was kind of sad by, but it is in progress. So if you look at developer Sandbox, you can go get your own OpenShift instance that you can then kind of run whatever you want on. However, not service mesh. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I had a number of frustrating moments trying to put this this show together. So what I wanted to show you here, though, was, a picture is worth kind of 1,000 words. And let's see if we can make things work well. I'm not sure. Is that going to pop into a new window? Here we go. So what we're going to do is basically, so we have service mesh set up in this demo environment. And so if you want to see how it's kind of set up, let me go to the correct project. Not there though. And you can see there's this this isn't a great picture. Let me show you this one. So basically I have all these different services. This, they're not brilliant. There's this curl service, there's this customer preference, whatever. So I have all these different services in a project in OpenShift, and they're just kind of doing their thing, right? The application hooks together. But, like as pretty as this is, like it doesn't actually really show you very much about how the application is kind of connected together. So what I wanted to show you is kind of how you can decorate this with service mesh, and then you can see kind of how the application connects together. However, the best way to do that is kind of like one step at a time. So if you look at, let's see, it's, oh shoot, it's, sorry, thinking.
So NL Hackham's asking, and we talked about this before the show. Sorry to interrupt you. Can you run Istio in CRC?
Yes.
Yes.
And I have successfully.
Yes.
However, I was having massive problems with it in the kind of couple days leading up to the show. I'm not sure if it was me or it was CRC or what, but I was just having a lot of trouble getting my CRC to run. It was actually before I even installed Service Mesh. So basically, to get Service Mesh 2.0, which gives you kind of all the stuff I just talked about, you need OpenShift 4.6. CRC is running OpenShift 4.6. What we're looking at here is actually OpenShift 4.3. So some of the feature set is not here yet, but the things that I think are cool, like the things like the broad strokes of them, are here. The thing that isn't, like some of the stuff that isn't here is like the WebAssembly stuff, which I wasn't really going to demo per se, because I think that's just very specific, and so not very demoable in a sense. Maybe we could talk about it in a future show, why it might be useful. So there should be, yeah, it's admin.
Can't log in now.
Everything's gonna break for me today.
Of course, live demos, man.
Yeah, it's been that kind of week. Why? I think it's because basically there's a mismatch on the username in the deployment. I think, let me see if it's, oh, maybe it's user one. Oops. There we go. Okay. So we are going to, and I will say, like, this is completely unrelated, but these browser-based terminals just blow my mind. And like, I think they are amazing.
So if you missed the show, our developer experience show yesterday, a web terminal is coming to OpenShift in 4.7. So yeah, that's going to be super cool.
It's in 4.6.
Is it in 4.6?
It is. It is.
Or
yeah.
they're making enhancements, more enhancements to it, or something.
Okay.
In 4.7.
Yeah,
Anyways,
I use it all the
yesterday
time.
we did a show all about it. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I was struggling with in my banging my head against the wall was I needed, so if you're using kind of a container, like from the Red Hat catalog or whatever, and it has, it uses certain environment variables to set it up. So like we discussed this in the past show, it's like the MySQL container, or actually it's MariaDB container, expects these 4 environment variables, right? One is MySQL host, one is MySQL password, etc. So password, user, database, I know what those are. Right. But when I run it in OpenShift, I don't know what those are, and or I don't know what host is, right? Because it's going to use the service, which is remote. So I want to give it an environment variable but because I'm using someone else's container image, I need to provide it with the name of that environment variable the way they want it, right? So what I was struggling with, and I can actually show you, which might make this make a little bit more sense. And we'll get to Nextcloud if we can.
We've got some overflow time.
If we go here, what I was struggling with is I need it to be called MySQL host, and it comes in as DB Nextcloud service host. So I was like, well, I have no way to hard code this, right? I want to know what it is on the fly. And so what I, through some discovery or whatever, I found out that, and thanks to Christian Hernandez, who may or may not be here, given he's on the West Coast, so it's very early for him.
He's up and getting ready for Sully's show, which comes up at 11 Eastern. So yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if you do $paren name of existing environment variable paren, it will map correctly. So now, and to prove the whole, where'd it go? No, wait. How do I want to do this? Sorry, I confused myself. So if you, yeah, see, we have a terminal right here. And so now I can do in here and say grep -i host. And you see I have a MySQL host. So because the container is expecting that environment variable name, hey, I got it. And it has the IP that I want rather than some hard-coded IP. Okay, so Kiali is what I wanted to show you. So this is part of OpenShift Service Mesh. I think one of the things that is kind of in progress is being worked on is like how to make this a little bit more of a unified experience. It's somewhat better in 4.6. It's not a lot better. It's still, like, in my mind, it's still kind of disconnected, but the feature set is there, if you know what I mean. So, who cares? All right, so what we can do is do this correctly. And I think let's look at not that, at this. Oh, did I actually copy that? The only problem with these terminals is Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V don't work all the time. So, I can never remember if my fingers just did it automatically or not.
Right.
So Jupyter Hub user is the problem child and needs to be, I believe, oh boy, user 1. So let me just fix that. Oh, good gracious. See what I tell you? It's always copying and pasting for me. Now, if I run the same thing again, it still didn't work. That's the best. Did I? Oh, I did my classic stupid mistake.
You have a classic stupid mistake?
Well, I have a few, really. I don't know. I don't know about
kind of what I was getting at, but yes.
Yeah, when I do an export, I often type the $sign.
Yeah. Yep, that'll do it.
Because you're cutting and pasting from somewhere else usually, and it's kind of, you space it. So what this is doing is basically generating load across the environment so that we can kind of see something happening, right? So if we go here, let's see, I think it's, oh, I need a namespace. And I think we want this one. And so let's make it look cool with traffic animation.
Nice.
And so let's see, can I blow this up? Oops, that's the wrong direction. So hopefully y'all can see that. And let's hide that. But so you can see kind of where the traffic is going, which is super cool, right? So you can kind of see it's going across here and you can see how long it's taking. And if we kind of continue walking through this demo, you can see, let's see, we can actually see more. We can actually go into the tracing as well. Let me make my same fix up here. That should work better.
Fix all the things.
Oops. Oh, no, it's actually hard-coded. So user 1. But then we can also see, and this is, like I said, this is actually one of those places where 4.6 or Service Mesh 2.0 technically, but which runs on 4.6 is more integrated. So if you go here, you can actually see blah blah. Yeah. Yep. Then we can actually see.
Oh, I love the Jaeger little.
Yeah, I think he's kind of cool.
Gopher.
I will say. And then find traces. So you can not only see the kind of like traffic flow that we were seeing in Kiali, but what Jaeger lets you do is actually dig into any given call and actually dig into that individual trace. So you can actually see exactly what's happening, exactly what's being called. And,
is that syscall being blocked? Is that syscall not having the right permission? The whole 9 yards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you've ever done any distributed application debugging, this is a nightmare, right? This is a very, very hard problem. Usually what you end up with is lots and lots of print line statements throughout your code, writing to some sort of log file, and then you basically, doing tail minus F on like 40 different files across all your different services, trying to figure out where exactly your code is going. This is not fun. And so the ability to, if you notice, there's not really any awareness of either Jaeger or Kiali in the application itself. So you just kind of like blob it onto it and bang, it starts working, right? And
which
that's
is just magical. Yes.
Right, which is like kind of amazing. And that was kind of what I wanted to show with Nextcloud. So if we we're already at 44. But actually, and by way of introduction, Next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to a team at Red Hat who actually works in, what do we call them now? Application services. But basically the kind of Java stack team, but they have developed an application that is what they call the Red Hat Cool Store, which is one of those things where it's a toy except built as a real application, so that it is a set of microservices that are a mixture of Java and Node.js that you can deploy as a set of microservices. And they're going to come and introduce that to us next time. And then what I want to do is switch over to that from the Nextcloud demos so that we can kind of say, hey, we actually can deploy V2, and because they've already built those kind of demo scenarios, or we can build those demo scenarios. Like the problem with like Nextcloud is it's a real application, right? I can't just introduce a random service into it. Whereas with the Cool Store, we have more flexibility. So what we may do is come back and revisit this stuff when we can kind of show off some of those aspects. So because this is still pretty demo-esque, you know, if you know what I mean. But what I want to, you know, like, but we can do some really cool things. I was just looking for the one that shows some Canary. Oh, and actually one I didn't even mention is this weighted routing idea. So if we change this one to using, is that the same one? Oh yeah, it is. What we can actually do is we can change the weights of the different pathways. So like if you notice back over here, where did my window go? I have 3 different versions of this recommendation engine, right? So, but they're all getting, you know, an equal percentage of the, let's actually switch to request percentage. They're getting each 33.5% of the traffic coming into it. What if we want to do the Canary scenario? We can make recommendation V3, we can make that 2%, right? And V2, keep that at, you know, whatever our 50%, and, you know, the whatever 48% for V1, so that you can actually switch the traffic as you go. But because we are at 47, let's pause for a second and do some sweet internet points.
Well, let's do that. Then there's a question I want you to follow up on. I kind of provided my answer. Oh, okay. So Hotshot here in Twitch land said, how do you see the benefits of using a service mesh contrasting with the big overhead and implicit configuration? At which point is it better than just deploying Jaeger, Chiali, etc. yourself? So my answer was, the second you want a consistent deployment of that tooling across multiple applications in your environment. I'm curious what your answer would be.
I don't really see an overhead of OpenShift service mesh versus Jaeger, Chiali, and Istio. Sorry, I was like, what's the last one? So like, I mean, you're basically, it's the same overhead. I mean, maybe it's slightly more for the integration with OpenShift, but the value of being able to do things like encrypted communication between all of your channels without developer involvement is like amazing. The value of, you know, Canary deployments, or red green, or sorry, red black deployments, or, you know, that kind of stuff, amazing. Even if you're not really leveraging it to the level it could be, it just, especially as an operator, it gives you so much more flexibility in how your application is deployed, and how it stays upright, right? So, you know, if you have a service failure in a data center, for example, and your backup is, you know, AWS, let's say, you know, if you don't have that set up in some sort of magic automated way, or even if you do, right, redirecting your traffic, you know, in this kind of way, so you can kind of say, oh, okay, let's make sure the AWS stuff is actually working, so let's give it 10%, you know, and then kind of say, okay, now let's scale up and make sure it keeps working. Like, I don't know, I think having something like a service mesh assuming, now this does make the assumption that your application is relatively service oriented. If you have a monolith, or or it's just like it, and kind of why I was arguing against doing Nextcloud this way in the deployment we have been working with, it's just two pieces, right? It's a web server and a database. That's probably not worth it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Whereas as soon as you start having, because basically what happens is, like, once you get to, like, it's some weird number, right? But it's like 5 services, all of a sudden you have 20. Like, it just kind of explodes as soon as your application starts thinking service oriented, or microservice oriented, if we want to use what the cool kids say.
Mm. Hmm.
That service orientation explodes, right? Like, look at the famous Bezos internal memo of the 2 pizza teams, and every service must be accessible from the outside. Like, AWS would be, like, it explodes, right? I mean, that's what happened there, is that it was essentially an organic growth to say, okay, well, we need this feature on the retail site, so let's do it as a service, and then the retail site can use it, but then we can offer it to other customers. And that's kind of how AWS grew. I Excuse me, I'm sure there's some high level planning to it, and maybe more so now, but initially it was just, we need more services for the retail site. Let's build those services in such a way that they could be consumed by customers themselves.
Right.
As a result, a service explosion. With service explosion comes need to manage them.
Yeah.
And I think a service mesh does a really nice job of that. I don't know. That was a
Agreed.
long-winded way of saying, Hotshot, what do you think? Do you agree?
I mean, and Charles chimed in, like, service mesh removes the need for your developers to actually have to hard code or code
Right.
anything regarding tracing and everything else.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and like, especially this kind of code, right? The stuff that allows things like canary deployments, things like implementing security layers, things like tracing. Those are all notoriously hard code as well.
Yeah. Like, watching some videos from who was it, Johnny Borkowitz? I forget, or I probably just butchered his last name, but Berkowitz, from the Go field, right? Like, I went to a meetup once years ago, and he was telling me, like, showing us how to implement tracing in an application he was deploying to AWS. And it was just like, wow, you have to add so many lines of code, right? Like, this is why service mesh exists.
Right. And just to kind of Hotshot's last point about, like, the package of things you'd want if you're doing microservices. Well, yeah, I mean, this is where it's important to say, not just microservices, like kind of any kind of services. But if you go back and watch episode, like, it was like 12, it was the one with Scott McBride. It's like, this is a little bit of the same problem of when to orchestrate. Is like, if you do it too early, you've got all this overhead with very little benefit. But if you do it too late, it's really hard to apply to an existing application, because you've already worked around a lot of these problems. So, it is still different, different scenarios, or different, like, kind of trade-offs that you want to make. But be careful of your developers going and implementing all of this stuff by hand in their individual applications if you wait a really long time to do it. All right. As far as scalability to that level, I think def tether, maybe.
Yeah. How scalable?
How scalable it is. I'm not sure do you know what terabyte volume streaming means?
I think you mean streaming a terabyte of data, right?
Okay. Because there was Terabyte, the database server company. That's
I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to or not, to be honest.
I don't know at that level. That is definitely something that
it's configurable, so you can sample a certain percentage, right?
Right. That too. Right. Yeah. So you could definitely scale it down to looking for the hotspots. Is one aspect. The other thing is, I would say, like, we probably have documentation regarding straight up scalability. I'm just not familiar with it off the top of my head. So it is definitely something you could file a ticket, and we could kind of get back to you on, or we kind of take it under advisement.
Yeah. Feel free to email us if you need to know that.
Right. So, oh my God, yes.
Yes,
and
thank
actually,
you, Charles.
yeah. So Charles brings up making sure that all of your certs are correct and current across that environment is
the
a
right
huge pain in
order
the
of certs, the right dates on the certs, right? Yeah, it's
and that is one of the things in Service Mesh 2 that's handled for you automatically that is not in whatever it was, 1.11 maybe, that we're working with right now, or that I'm showing you right now. So so that's a definite reason to go and look at Service Mesh 2, if you're interested in that, minimizing that particular pain.
Right.
All right, so now
the points.
So I will say, and caution to the regular attendees of the show, I did rejigger some of the points. And the reason I rejiggered some of the points is because, as I said at the beginning of the show, we do have maybe, hopefully soon, some non-just intrinsic value to the points coming up. Oh, shoot, that is entirely the wrong code. I just realized.
Well, you can put the right code in chat.
I could. So please, if I type chat, that's not going to help anybody. So as you can tell, I was doing, there was a lot of prep work for this episode. And so the kind of like the niceties are the stuff I dropped, right? So like the last 2 times thing, and the episode update. So here is, where did the chat window go? Here it is. This is the correct code.
Thank you.
Or the deep link, really. You can go to that level up point form and enter just this part. Sorry, now I'm typing.
Typing and talking. That's what we like to do.
Exactly. Do keep in mind, the way I calculate the points, right, is by mapping your email addresses. So please try to make sure you use the correct email address. If you submit it incorrectly, you can submit it again correctly and it will be fine, or contact me on Discord and I will correct any errors that you may have. But thanks again to Netherlands Hackham for rocking the 2,800 points, and Narendev staying strong with 2,600. I don't think I've seen Narendev today.
I have not. I did not. I think he was around earlier this week, but
okay, all right. So, and then Noah Friction with 2,400 points, Joe Fuzz with 1,800, and then Det Conan Kudo, who is starting to move up in the rankings. But we will, like I said, I rejiggered it a bit. I'm thinking about adding some more activities as well that you can also get points for. We are trying to get some other people to also be giving out points on the show, or on their shows.
On their shows, yeah.
And so hopefully we'll see more of that as we go forward.
Hopefully.
But yeah, there's the sweet internet points.
Yay!
Let's see. Okay, what else did I want to show here? Not that either. Oh yes, it is. This is one of the funny things about the terminal, is that sometimes it comes in like straight up and down, but if you readjust the window, it fixes it, which I find amusing. I find much of modern web development insane. So let's see. I don't know. Is there like, I'm kind of feeling like maybe we should stop here and we should talk about our kind of new application next week, and then talk about that new application and using a service mesh with it. Like I said, I just couldn't make the Nextcloud story work well, so apologies. but I just it wasn't happening.
From a container perspective, it was a good story. But now that we're getting into these higher level things where it's like tracing and all the other dealios, right? Like we need to be able to plug in our own services and such. And that's just not as compatible with Nextcloud.
Well, with like a real application, right? Like, I mean, so, the Cool Store has been designed to be, first of all, kind of all microservices, B, we have lots of ancillary stuff that we can then build into it as we go along. So yeah, so maybe we should call it a day here, unless we have any other questions.
Well, I dropped the Discord link. If there are other questions, folks, please feel free to join us on Discord and ask away. You can also ask us on our social media handles, Langdon with a 1 and at Chris Short, all one word, on Twitter. And my email is cshort@redhat.com if you have questions. And
just Langdon at redhat.com without the 1. I should go and get the 1 as well.
You probably should make it consistent somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a long story.
Anyways, Tiger says happy 2021. Yes, indeed, happy New Year to everyone, even though it has not been so happy so far. And yes, there's Discord. So let me double drop that again.
We won't we be having an episode? I'm just looking at a calendar. Yeah, we'll have an episode either the day of Chinese New Year or the day after. So let's all hope for, or sorry, the day before or the day of. I'm not sure which. I'd have to look it up. Of Chinese New Year. So hopefully we'll be able to say Happy Chinese New Year, and everything will be much, much better than it has been since this New Year.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to switch to Chinese New Year's from now on.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. And coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 1600 UTC is the...
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
OpenShift Administrator's Office Hours. It's an office hour, so please feel free to bring your questions. It's geared towards administrators, but we're going to be discussing, as kind of our starting point, disconnected OpenShift environments. So if you're part of the people that need to air gap your things, let us know. We're talking about the Discord program, JP Day, to be clear. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you here in a little bit.
Yes. Bye all.
Bye all.